Today I'm talking to Joe Cilic of Palisades and Beverly Hills with Sotheby's International Realty. A little over a year ago, before Joe entered the field as a real estate agent, he was a managing real estate broker for Sotheby's International Realty. During his tenure, he managed over 5 offices and 400 agents. During that time, he participated in over 4,000 real estate transactions totaling over $5 billion in volume. In Joe's first interview with us, episode 76, he was less than 2 months into being a real estate agent, already with 8 listings and contracts pending. Since his first interview with us, he has closed $100 million in real estate. Today, we talk about his secrets to business planning and winning listings for a $100 million a year business. Welcome to the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. I created this podcast because over the years that I've been an agent, from struggling to successful, I've found that the one foundation that created the mindset, knowledge, and ability to break through to new levels was the camaraderie and sharing of ideas from other generous and successful agents. Those experiences catapulted my career. They gave me the inspiration and idea to further develop those friendships and share what they have had to share with me to make not only more successful careers for each of us, but a stronger community and better respect for our profession at large. All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf podcast, where top real estate agents tell how they do it. And today, back on the show, we have Joe Cilic in Palisades and Beverly Hills with Sotheby's International Realty. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Jere.
So I am
happy to be here.
Really excited to have you here, because just to kind of give everybody a refresher, before Joe came on the show, he was a managing broker for Sotheby's International Realty in Brentwood, which is a part of LA. For everybody who is listening, does it just to verify. Anyway, is an incredible motivator, incredible managing broker. And he's like, you know what, I'm ready to get back into this and do it. So about a year ago, as you were getting into it, we had you on the show talking about how you were launching your business. You already had incredible success. Now it's been about a year. You were on episode 26. This is episode, sorry everybody, you know, but I don't know yet, but 130 something, right, Isaac?
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about everything you talked about, what you were applying then, how you've applied it now, how you've gotten it there, and we'll probably touch on your focus on listings and winning those. But that being said, I'm really excited to hear. Tell us where you were and where you've gotten and what we need to know.
Thanks so much, Jere. Yeah, last time we were just starting the team and just kicked off. We got 8 listings in our first month, and we were really proud of that. And we came to realize that it's not quite that easy. So it's not like we got 8 listings every month since then, but we have won a lot of listings and we closed a lot of transactions. We're proud to say that we closed $64 million in our first year in business, and we have another $16 million pending. So things have gone well. Last time I talked about my business plan and the different buckets that we plan to go after in terms of where we were going to develop our business. And so I can report back after a year that all of those buckets were successful in varying degrees. So our sphere of influence generated about 40% of our business,
Wow.
which was our biggest source of business. Agent referrals was another 25% of our business. And that's growing, by the way. That's increasingly becoming a big part of our business, either co-brokering deals with other agents or getting referrals from them. Professional networking and attorneys, those were separate buckets originally. I've sort of combined the two, and that's been about 20% of our business. And then charitable organizations, being involved in the philanthropic community accounted for about 5%. And if for the math wizards at home, that leaves about 10% that didn't come from any of those buckets. And what we realized was we're getting business from our listings. And so whether it's picking up clients at open houses, other listings, and that accounted for about 10% of our business. And so that's another bucket that we're trying to be more strategic with so that we can grow our business based on listings and getting more listings.
Smart. So I'm going to review for everybody the 5 buckets when you started a year ago, because it's adjusted a little bit, but the 5 buckets were sphere of influence, referrals from other agents or co-brokering with other agents, professional networking, business with attorneys because you were an attorney,
yes,
and charities. So you've merged professional networking and attorneys. So now it's sphere of influence, other agents, professional networking, which includes the attorneys, charity, and the new one is winning business from your existing listings.
Right, exactly.
Love it. Okay, so tell us a little bit about, I don't know if you want to hit on each bucket or if you want to give us a big story to start, but kind of coming into really hitting it hard, going back, because you can become successful in this business quickly when you have a plan, know what you're doing, know what your goals are, and execute. So
Right.
even executing, I think a lot of people have, like in our business, bad things happen, problems happen, things don't go as planned. That's kind of why
Right.
it's a good business to be in, though, if you could just understand that that's expected. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a career. But give us like kind of how you planned it. How did things change, and how did you deal with issues, and how did those turn into better situations, or how did you diffuse and all that good stuff?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no question that in this business, you will fail. You cannot win every listing. You cannot get every buyer to buy. It's inevitable. And, I could look back at this year and say that I am the biggest loser in Los Angeles real estate. When I look at the amount of business and the opportunities and the disappointments that we've had.
Right.
I interviewed for a portfolio of, residential properties. It was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I did not win the listings. And that was pretty disappointing. It was an amazing
Right.
opportunity, but I had to lick my wounds and I had to say, how am I going to make up for losing out on literally hundreds of millions of dollars of listings? And so I was so focused on one of their key assets, which was a property that's over 9 figures, so over $100 million.
Wow.
One
Yeah.
property. And I put into the universe that I wanted to sell that property. And I actually had a buyer that I connected with, and that buyer wanted to buy that property. And he told me to write an offer. I wrote it up, very excited to submit it. And the client decided that now wasn't the time to submit that offer.
Oh, right.
So I put into the universe that I wanted to sell that property, and I got an opportunity that's pretty close, but that client remains a very important client of mine. And I know that I'm going to do a tremendous amount of business with that client in the relatively near future. And so I feel like you have to go out and make up for all the things that are the disappointments. You have to go out and find a way to get business to make up for that. And it motivates me rather than saying, I'm a loser, I can't get anything.
Right.
You have to get motivated by it.
So I love it. You're like, you will fail. I was writing times, I'm the biggest loser in LA in real estate. Are you quoting these things, Isaac? No. But it's like failure, it's all in how you see it. Failure is not failure. Failure is the step to success. Failure is the only way you learn. Failure is the only way that you're ever going to figure it out if you don't fail. You cannot. So it makes me think of a book, 2 books. I haven't read this one yet, but one, all of the things you're saying, basically you're saying the obstacle is the way. So the obstacle of not getting the business was the way you won the buyer. The obstacle of the buyer not putting the offer through. Like some people could just beat themselves up and be like, everything I do just doesn't work out. Meanwhile, they forgot the interview they got. They forgot what they learned. They forgot the deals they knew and the introduction they got and the new buyer they got. And the new buyer they got is going to introduce them to 100 more buyers in that same realm. They're in the 0.001% of net worth in the whole world that you just got in front of, or you could just be like, I'm a loser. So, I mean,
Right.
but there's a book actually called The Obstacle is the Way. Isaac will find out the author for us. I haven't read that yet, but that what you're saying, that book keeps coming to my life, and I'm sure all of ours in real estate. But the other one is called, same author, Willpower Doesn't Work. So that's a little bit different, but it has a lot of the same message of what you're talking about that I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention, is that there are all of these things that happen, but it's about getting, like what you're doing. Willpower is more about, it's not so much willpower as it is your environment and who you're around and what you're doing. And that's what you're doing. Hey, you might not have gotten that deal, but you got that interview. You might not have won that interview, but now you know the inventory, which, by the way, doesn't mean you're not going to eventually get that deal and that buyer is eventually going to buy, because you continue to create the environment around you that's going to continue to propel you in the direction of, oh, by the way, only about 100 million in your first year of real estate, but you're a loser, right? I mean, so I'm having too much fun. But no, that is like, I love that story, but I had to add that book to that for all of us, or both of those books. So keep going for us on that, kind of more of the outcome that we need to know, and some more examples of what you've gone through this year.
So I mean, I think that it's about, winning listings at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I've certainly lost some listings and I've learned from that. And so I can walk through the things that I've learned and what I found effective in winning the listings. And the listings that I haven't won, I think, still put you in the mix. So if you're interviewing for some very significant properties,
Mm-hmm.
which I have, and unfortunately some of those I didn't get, it puts you in the mix. And so you're talking to other clients and you get business that way. But I have found some things that are particularly effective in winning listings, and perhaps we.
Okay. Well, first, I have a question for you that I know everyone's dying to know the answer to. When you got the interview, and this goes back into winning listings, but when you got that interview for, hundreds of millions of dollars of listings,
right?
Which bucket did that come from? How did you land that interview alone?
Yeah, so it was from my sphere of influence. It was a very good friend of mine who's an investment banker who deals with restructuring companies. And he introduced me to an attorney who is actually part of the team that was hired to determine who was going to list these assets. So it fell into the attorney bucket and also the sphere of influence.
That's awesome. Now, should we, and don't worry everybody, we're also going to talk about winning listings, but while we're talking about buckets, should we go through, would it be better, because you've got the content, I just want to pull all the best of it out of you. Should we go directly to winning listings, or should we go run through like each bucket and kind of examples of each bucket on, successes and or failures and what you learned, and which one's going to give us the better stuff?
Yeah, I think that we can we can talk about both. I think that winning the listings is something that's important, and we can see how those buckets kind of intertwine with that.
Okay, you take the lead here. Is that how we're going to do it?
So,
and we're not editing any of this, by the way, because I love live. I hate these podcasts that edit out all the good stuff and the personalities. No, what's that?
As far as getting listings, I think a lot of people talk about it as listing presentations, and I think that that's a problem.
Thank you. And we have the problem that we unfortunately even get it in our heads. Like, I've stopped saying I'm going to a listing presentation, because just to even think of it that way sabotages it. But keep going.
I know. It really needs to be conversational and not about presenting. And the more conversational the meeting is, the better the outcome is going to be. And I can see that in those failures where you're sitting there with a panel of 10 people across from you that's pretty intimidating, and you're presenting and it's less conversational. Whereas when you make it about a conversation about a client and their goals, it turns out to be a lot better. And when you can use stories and actual case studies of properties that you've sold that are similar to theirs and they can relate to it, that's what really resonates with a client, not presenting about, I'm so great, I've sold 4,000 properties. Yeah, that's true. But, going through what you've done for someone who's similarly situated so that they can see in that, what they're going to experience is, I think, really important. And that's something that we've realized that actually works.
And tell us this, walk us through the ideal, what are we going to call it, by the way? Jack Cotton has a name for a listing presentation that's not a listing presentation. I don't know what he calls it.
I don't know. I call it maybe a listing conversation or something like that. I don't have an ideal term for it.
Well, you're going over to somebody's house to talk about helping them sell their house. It shouldn't have a name, maybe.
Right, yeah, perhaps.
Right, when I go over and have a drink with my friend, is that like I'm going to go have a drink presentation with my friend? No, you're having a drink with your friend. So but when you do go to meet someone at their house, they call you over, they want you to come over and talk to them about listing, and you're probably or definitely competing for that listing.
Right.
How, from the initial phone call or clue that you've got the appointment, or when you've got the appointment,
right,
how do you run? Well, the ADD's kicking in everybody, because before you get the appointment, it's really how you win the listing. Really, by the time you get the appointment, you should really already have it. So maybe run us to wherever your starting point is, to the getting the appointment, before the appointment, during the appointment, after the appointment. Like, how does that ideally run and flow? What does that look like?
So I'll share with you. So I'll take one listing for example, and that was
perfect.
One that was referred to me from an out of the country agent who I connected with. Referred me to the client. That agent didn't have a strong relationship with the client, but one of her colleagues did. And so it was a warm introduction. So that's one. So I had a warm introduction going in, but it started off with obstacles. So the first obstacle was I walked back from my office to my house and my car was not there. So I have to get to this appointment.
That wasn't funny to you at the time. It is now. Anyway.
Right, exactly. So it's an important appointment. It's a $6 million listing. And I get to my house and my car's not there. And so what do? I don't have time to figure out where my car is, or if it was towed. I have to call an Uber and I have to get to that appointment. So I get to the appointment.
But at least do you bring stuff? Do you have stuff?
So I had all the stuff.
Okay, and now do you give him any stuff before you get there? Do you give him an email?
I did not. So I just.
And what was the we got to get into the detail. Like, what was the conversation like before you got there?
Right. It was relatively short. The client English is not their first language.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So it was more about just setting the appointment and then going in and then trying to win.
Engaging in person.
Right. The warm referral part of it was the part that had me, with an upper hand going in. But I walk into this appointment, and on the TV screen, the big screen TV, is a competitor in LA that's on a reality TV show. And that show is playing in the background. And the client starts asking me about the people on the TV show and those agents.
And you already don't know where your car is, and you had to Uber to get there. You're like, seriously?
So the idea is you need to keep a strong mental, you have to be strong mentally and not get distracted by those things. So I had to quickly acknowledge what the client was talking about and then say, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about your property. So not get distracted by that.
Let's talk about you. That's what people really...
I sat down at the table, and guess what greeted me at the table?
Oh no, it gets better.
Look from that same agent that was on TV in the background.
Oh, this is great. What a good story. Yeah.
So I had to move that out of the way and then start talking about the client's property.
So the book was was it intentional that the book was there?
I think that they had mailed that to the client, and the client had it sitting there because they were thinking about listing their property, and that was somebody who reached out. Not to mention the fact they were watching them on TV.
Wow.
So I'm starting with.
So you're kind of like, why am I here?
Right, exactly. So I had to move that out of the way, but I was prepared, and I always do homework in advance of showing up for a listing, and I'll say, you should call other listing agents of properties that are nearby that one, that are the comps. And you should talk to those listing agents because they can tell you a story about that transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And in the listing, let's call it conversation, you can tell a story about that other sale that really makes you seem like you know what you're talking about.
Even if you don't.
Whereas if you go in cold and you don't know anything about that sale, you're not going to be able to talk about it as an
you're not
expert.
going to be valuable to the seller.
What's that?
You're not value. I mean, our biggest value today is information and context. Like you can get all the details online, and not just Zillow, by the way. Like there's lots of platforms that can give you information and data. It's who can put it into context, like who understands the situation, who understands what happened with that deal, and how is an agent going to step in and apply that to the seller's transaction, and how can they make sure they understand it. So
I think that's low-hanging fruit for agents is to do that, and I think so few agents actually take the time to do it. And I can tell you that in my experience, it's been a huge way in which we distinguish ourselves because we spend the time to do it. And then how about driving by the property before the appointment and realizing, oh my gosh, there's a new for sale sign 2 doors down from them, and you would never have known that if you didn't drive by the property in advance.
Well, well, if it wasn't, because there might be a sign up, but that doesn't mean it's an MLS yet.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or for sale by owner, or, there's so many, or what's going on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I say do your homework, keep mental focus. And then, I think that when a client says something like, I can tell you how many times this has happened, where they say, oh, well, maybe I should just lease the property, right?
Right.
So, and sometimes that happens after you already have a listing signed. And then they say, well, maybe we should just lease it. And if you go down that path with them of getting defensive and saying you signed a listing with me.
Oh, no.
No, you just let them say that. You know that they're just going through things in their head.
And our job is to help them process, not defend our listing agreement.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Because half the time, I can't tell you how many clients come to me. I had a client the other day. She's like, you know what? We're just going to rent. I was like, this is a buyer. I said, you know what? I think that's a good idea. And I really did. like I really did. I was like, you need to rent because the right house has not arrived, and you guys just need to settle and figure out what is supposed to happen is going to reveal itself. We've done everything we can. We've done our homework. That night, an hour later, she calls me. We were going to put in an offer, and these are our terms. Yeah, exactly. And some of that is because we have to remember as an agent, our job isn't to get a contract signed and push a deal through if it doesn't need to be done. We get paid when the deal gets done, but our job is to guide and hold their hand. Like these buyers, sometimes we have to have some empathy and realize as their agent, unfortunately, in our profession, we don't have the best reputation. We don't come under the highest standard of excellence, unfortunately, that we're really looking out for them, even though we should be, and you and I are. But when that happens, they may not even realize there's so many subconscious things going on that if you can stay in a place where you're truly looking out for that person, it pays off. Like I can't even believe how much it's paid off in my business. And I really expected nothing but to put somebody in the best place I could for their personal interest. And again, maybe she would have rented. It's not like go tell people to rent and they'll buy. And I'm going on too long for you, but it just really driving that home. Like if we remember, we're not here to like cut the deal. We're here to make people's lives right. It's amazing what comes of that.
Yep. There's no question about it.
So but anyway, keep going because your stories are awesome.
The other thing that I think that goes along with what you just said is pricing a property. So I think, buying the listing, that term is when an agent goes in and they give you a huge price. So with that particular property, the person who sold it to him, the agent said, you can get, I can get $8 million for this property for you. I knew that it wasn't worth any more than 6, and 6 is the stretch. And so I had to tell the client, I had to laugh at that and say, you know what, just because somebody says that they can do something doesn't mean that it's actually true. And the client knew that wasn't true or accurate, but buying the listing, I don't buy my listings. I tell the client, I show them the comps, I walk them through it, but I also tell them what I think. And so often clients will bluff with you too about a price. So I had a client tell me, I sat down with them and before we even started talking, he said, I just want to tell you that we're not going to take a penny less than 1.8 million for this property.
Right.
And I said, I appreciate you inviting me into your home. It was really nice to meet your wife. And I'm honored that you took the time to meet with me. But I cannot achieve that for you, and neither can anybody else, because it's not worth anywhere near that.
Wow.
The property is only worth 1.5 million. And if you believe that there's an agent that can get you that 1.8 million, I'm not the right person for you, but I do appreciate your time. And what did the client say? Well, what can you get for me? And I said, it's 1.5 million. And you know what? That client signed the listing at 1.5 million, and we sold it for 1.5 million because that's what it was worth. And so,
and didn't waste time, energy of his. I didn't waste their time.
I didn't disappoint them. They had a lot of reasons that they needed to sell their home and move on. And had I taken that listing at 1.8 million, we'd probably still be on the market, and their lives would have been negatively impacted by that just because I was a agent that went along with what they were saying when I knew it wasn't true. And it's different if you don't know what a property is worth.
Right.
But when you look at the comps and you absolutely know, you just can't go along with it. They're looking at you to be a trusted advisor. And for me, it's more important to do the right thing for the client. And oftentimes the right thing is to price their home appropriately from the start. And mind you, every client that you do that with is happy with you at the end of the day. And the ones where you take a listing that's overpriced, they're the ones that are unhappy with you because their property's been sitting on the market.
That hurts you tenfold down the road too.
It does. It hurts them. It hurts you. It hurts everybody in the equation. And if you could just price right from the beginning, you're so much better off.
Well, I love your story about being just completely candid with him that I can't, if there's an agent that you believe is going to get that for you, and it's like you can't tell them. You have to be careful not to tell them they're wrong. But I owe it to you to tell you the truth. This is what it is. If you don't agree, it's your property. It's your prerogative. I mean, those aren't the words you use, but do what you need to do.
Yeah, I don't control the price of your home, but I certainly control whether I'm going to list it or not.
Exactly.
And I'm certainly not going to list it if it's not in the realm of reason. And
exactly. Now, have you had? You've only been back at because you were an agent before, and then you were in management, and then you got back in. So have you had? Especially because you were just since your management experience, I think that just really gave you some clarity on the do's and don'ts of being an agent. Right. Have you had, maybe we could do some do's and don'ts, but first, have you had an experience, which many of us have, but that you can give us though, where you've gone in, you lost it because it was overpriced and they came back after the fact? Or how does it usually go down? Or give some fun examples.
I've had some where I lost it because it was overpriced, and eventually they worked it down to the price that I told them, and then they sold it for a bit less.
And that's just
unfortunately. And I wanted to call those people up and say, see, I could have saved you, the 8 months that you were on the market and making your bed every day for showings.
Exactly.
If you would have listened to me, but you obviously don't make those calls. But I do have some listings right now where we've passed on them because of price, or that was part of the picture. And I'm hopeful that being the second agent on the deal after the first isn't. We haven't had one that's actually come back yet, but we've certainly. What we've given in terms of pricing suggestions, we've seen that bear out with the experience with the other agent.
So because you said earlier, and I was thinking, sometimes you don't know, you just don't know what a house is going to sell for. It's hard to tell. It's unique. It's an interesting market. It's got things that are great, but things that aren't great, and there's no real science to working those numbers out. Right. How do you handle that conversation with the seller, and what strategies do you recommend or like to go with on those? for your client and for you.
You lay out the comparables, but you acknowledge the fact that you don't know for sure how the buyer pool is going to value the property. One of the things you can do is do an agent price opinion, where you invite colleagues to the property, give their opinion, and that way it's more informed because it's not just you. And you can have colleagues from your company or another company that you trust and have good relationships with come out and do that. And sometimes that's helpful. But I think that, laying it out and then asking the client about really what their goals are and timing too, right? So generally speaking,
back to the conversational piece. Talking about keeping the appointment conversational.
Unless the property is extremely unique, if you price it a little bit on the lower side, it'll drive up in price and it'll sell for what it's worth. If you price it too high, that's when you start chasing the market down and it's more problematic. But I would lay it out for the client and I would say, based on your goals, this is, a recommendation, but I can't be sure. And so sometimes we've overshot on a property because the client wanted a number. I wasn't sure what the market would bear. And then we determined that wasn't the appropriate price. So now we got to talk about adjusting the price.
Exactly. That's always a fun conversation.
Yeah.
And how does that conversation go? When do you find your clients coming to you for price reductions, or you usually have to go for them? And how do you present it? How does it, obviously you set expectations for it.
Yeah. I've had it happen both ways, where client actually initiates the conversation, but more often the client wants to keep it at the higher price and we have to have that discussion. And so sometimes I'll tell them that, I think we're going to need to have a discussion in a week or two, depending on what plays out with these potential buyer prospects. So I set it up in advance so that it's in their mind. And then we talk about it. And, I pull some stats. So the other day I pulled a stat and it said that, 71% of the properties were either relisted on the market or had price reductions in this particular market, this client. And so 37% were price reductions, 34 were relisted properties, at lower prices. And so I told them, I said, look, it's not just us.
That's
71% of the listings in your neighborhood are going through this.
And that's where I think a lot of sellers feel exposed. They feel sometimes they go on the market. There's this idea that I'm going to the American Idol competition and I've already won. And then they find out, I actually stole that from Sean Rawls, who used to own Keller Williams in Atlanta, but it was so cute. And then they show up and they find out, oh, just kidding, it's not that easy, or I didn't realize there was all this, absorption rates, inventory, relative to how many sales are going on per month. But helping them, first of all, see, I'd often find they feel so exposed, and it's wait. This is the market. This is you guys. You're not special. This is, again, you want them to feel good, but helping them understand the layout and the market.
I would say
and what's going on.
Your home is special, but there's still a value for it. And that's the other thing.
Exactly.
Is every seller thinks that their home is special, and the memories that they've created there. And I talk to them about that. And I say that the memories that you've created there created a lot of value for you. The new buyer is going to create their own memories, and they're not going to pay you for your memories of the property.
Oh, wow. So
it's something to work through with them and to say that those are really special things for you about your home. And the new person will make their own special memories there, but they just don't pay you for it. And every special thing, we know that, whether it's, some rare diamond, or it has a price. And so, their home can be very special, but when it's on the market, it's not a secret. And when everybody's seeing this property and all the exposure that we give it, if everybody's coming back and saying it's not worth what you're asking for, we need to realize that we need to make an adjustment.
Yeah, you've got to listen to what the market's saying.
It is going to be for your property.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some more, so you've got 40% of your referrals or your business is coming from sphere of influence,
right.
25% other agents, 20% from professional networking, and 5% from charity. How do you apply because it really all comes down to winning listings. What do you do with your sphere of influence, other agents, networking, charity? What do you do in those buckets that actually wins those listings?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that the closer you are to your sphere, knowing things about you, knowing, your track record of success, so that they can communicate that to the client, or perhaps it's part of your sphere that is actually having you hire you to sell their home. So I think that, using social media. So, I don't know that I've actually got business from social media where, I'm on, Instagram, and someone I don't know reaches out to me and says, hey, come list my home. But I can certainly tell you that it's a great way to show the activity that you're doing and to give confidence to your sphere of influence that, one, you're successful, you know what you're doing, and two, they can tell their client, oh my gosh, this guy's great. He and his team just sold, 10 properties in the last month. And so it gives them some ammunition to go in and to tell that warm lead.
I love that. I think that's so important to share, because a lot of people ask me, how many clients do you get from all of your social media, or how many do you get from your advertising? And it's like, I'd much rather work through warm leads and referrals than any call off of a magazine ad. I mean, guys, if you want to call me on a magazine ad, call me. But it's more of, it strengthens my ability to list and sell houses more powerfully, to market better, to create more value, to create more, value in the buyer's eyes, that it's a listing with us, as opposed to in how we position it and put it on a platform. And it makes it much easier for people to refer me. But to spend it just to buy business, we're in business. Our job is to be in business to deliver value, not take the money that we've earned and throw it back out there just to get another deal. But let's create more value for who we have, and that grows the business. So you talked about winning more business from your existing listings. I'm sure is there anything else to add? I know you're doing a lot of that with having listings gets listings, but what are some examples or stories you might share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, being effective at open houses. And so I have a team, Bruno Abasor and Kevin Kelly are my business partners. And
I know Bruno was in here earlier.
Yeah, well, he sets things up for me. Otherwise, I couldn't do anything.
I love it. Do you know how to type? Or do you know how to get on the internet?
What's that?
Everybody else is laughing. I said, Bruno was doing everything for you. I was like, well, do you type, or like I'm giving you a hard time?
Yeah, no, I do. I do know how to type.
Okay, good. Just kidding. So tell us your listings. So you've got Bruno and Kevin.
Yeah. And so, and so if we have an open house, I certainly can't do everything if we have multiple open houses. And so, Kevin's particularly great at open houses. He's a very friendly guy. And so he's winning, people who come in, he relates to them well, and he's able to get business with them, whether it's selling that particular property, which actually happened not too long ago, or getting somebody else to be a client and work with us in the future. And so open houses, being prepared at the open house, but maybe playing to your strengths. So, I've certainly obtained a good amount of business at open houses, including a current listing that we have. But am I the best person at holding an open house? No, I'm not, actually. I recognize that. And so I think that playing to your strength in this business is really important. And I think, I'm particularly good at going in on a listing appointment, but I have team members who are particularly good at other things. And I think that that's really important in today's business, where I think teams are becoming more and more important.
More relevant and more important and more important. And there's so much more, I think, that goes into being a real estate agent, for marketing and social media and just technology, open houses, setting up open houses. We have so much more that we can do to sell a house. So we need that much more expertise and knowledge to help us do it. Tell us, I kind of want to close us out on my final three, because I think we've really hit on the buckets, which is awesome, because you've applied your buckets: sphere of influence, other agents, professional networking, charity, and now winning business from other listings, to do pretty much basically about $100 million in a year in your first year back in the business. And then how you're using those things to winning listings. anything else you should share with us before I do close out with the final 3 questions?
I think I'm ready for the final 3, and maybe that'll pique some interest in some other topics along the way.
So number 1 is, if there is one tool that you think is most beneficial, other than like your cell phone, that's been most beneficial for your business and growing your business and expanding your business and getting where you are today, what would you say that is?
It's hard because I really do think, technology is great, but I think so much of it comes from just person to person and more personal interaction. But I would say we do have an email program called Resora, where we send out, email updates and newsletters and things about our listing. I think that's been something that's been effective for us, in addition to, posting things on Instagram. But I think that so much of our business is not necessarily, I think technology certainly complements it, but if we remove technology from the equation completely, we'd still be successful. And if we just relied on technology, we would not be successful. So I think it's a complement. And so that's one program that we've used to kind of complement what we do.
Well, I think in today's day and age, that personal interaction is more valuable than maybe ever before, because there are a lot of people who forget. There are a lot of people who that should be used to strengthen, not replace what we're doing. And it's huge. I like that tool better. But Resora is a great tool, because I think Resora, you can see who opens emails, what they're looking at, and for how long.
Exactly.
Which
is so then you can
huge.
follow up with them with a personal call and say, hey, how's it going? When you know that they just clicked on your listing, 5 times and we're looking at it, and then you realize, oh, are you looking for a home right now? And then you start that conversation. So it's a great tool to give you some insight behind the scenes.
Yep. Book. I don't remember what book you recommended last time. Was it the same one, or do you have a new one?
Yeah. Last time I recommended Talent is Never Enough and the Referral Code. But this time I think I'll take on something that's near and dear to your heart. And what is that?
Never Split the Difference.
So I will say this, that Never Split the Difference is an amazing book. I know you're the biggest advocate for that.
Oh, God, is there a but coming? What? Anyway, go ahead.
But I will say this. I actually disagree with one thing that Chris said on a podcast, and I don't remember what podcast it was.
What was it? What's that?
What he said was, at the end of a transaction with a buyer, the only thing that the buyer remembers is the price that they paid for the property. And I have to say that in my experience, and
he said that?
Yeah. And
when? Did he say that in our interview?
Uh-huh.
No, he said they remember how you made them feel.
No, and that's true, how you made them feel. But he said they remember
in my interview?
Yeah. I think so. So I will say that nobody remembers what they paid. We have clients that list their home after only 2 years of owning it.
Yeah.
They do not remember what they paid for it. They remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
They don't remember.
We're going to have to go find that, Isaac. It's still the best book ever.
Yeah,
ever.
So that's the only thing that I disagree with, but he's amazing. His negotiation strategies are amazing. But I thought I'd share that at the risk of having Chris come after me. And
I would love for Chris to come after me. So anyway, no, we did have the honor of having a client party with Chris as our guest of honor, and it was slightly amazing. It was incredible, and he's incredible. But if you see Never Split the Difference, is that your book?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure. Oh my God. Like, are you kidding me? Isaac.
I know. I love it.
Should we edit, Isaac? It's a game changer. So Talent is Never Enough, Referral Code, and Never Split the Difference. Right. So have you applied his principles in negotiating?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's not like it's a manipulation or a trick. It's really just how to apply empathy to create the best situation for everybody. Exactly. Truly. It's amazing. So, and the book is brilliant. Last question. What is the one thing if we take anything from this interview, what would you make sure that one thing is?
I would say have a business plan and execute, and then make adjustments along the way. And so, what we realized was I had the 5 buckets, and I decided to combine 2 of the buckets and add the other one, which was getting business from listings, because it became apparent that was a good source of business that previous to kicking this off, I hadn't really focused on as much. And so I think that you can make tweaks, and you can look at where you're spending your money and your return on your investment. And we've done that. And then maybe something that we didn't go into too much, but it's choosing the right sort of partners if you are going to team up. And that's something that I have great partners, and I think that you just have to be around people that you trust and respect. And I think that can make a big difference to your business, because you can't be in all places at all times.
And you're not the best at everything.
Exactly. And so I think it's super important.
Set the right partners with the right terms, would you say? Right. I think that's probably a part of it. So, awesome. Well, now we're going to have him back to talk about that. Joe, awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.